Hey guys, it's Miss Libby from the farm. Well, today I wanted to show you a science experiment that I'm excited that talks about how Jesus wraps us up in his love and how that never lets us sink. So we're going to look at Matthew 14:22 through 33, and God's true word. Is every word in the Bible true? Yep, say it with me. Every word in the Bible is true. That's right. Every word in the Bible is true. Now today we're going to talk about a story that maybe you've heard before. I bet maybe you have. I think a lot of people have heard that Jesus walked on water. Even people who aren't Christians and don't follow Jesus tend to know that. But the really cool thing is that we know the true story. So here's the true story. And here's a funny little joke first. I heard a joke once that said Jesus was perfect and he could walk on water. So when he was a baby, did he walk on his bath water? That'll be a fun question to ask him when we get to heaven. All right, so Jesus has sent his disciples, including Peter, out in their fishing boat to go on ahead of him across the Sea of Galilee. Jesus had just been teaching, and he wanted to spend some time with God. So the disciples went on out across the lake, and it got dark, but there was a lot of wind, and we know that Sea of Galilee usually does still have a lot of wind and a lot of waves. So the sea was going, and it was starting to go, and they're churning up, and the disciples are out there. Well, Jesus sees that they're in a little bit of trouble, that it's time for him to go see the disciples. So Jesus begins to walk on the water. Now, this would have been way, way, way too far for any of us to swim. Jesus could have swum it in a snap. He was like the best Olympic swimmer ever, but he decided he was going to walk on the water. So he's walking out on top of the water. Now, the disciples looked out and they saw this image, and they thought it was a ghost. They were like, something's going on. We've got this storm. There's a ghost coming. Well, Peter, who was one of Jesus's closest friends, like in his inner circle, recognized that it was Jesus. He says, it's Jesus. It's Jesus. And Jesus confirms, yes, it is. And Peter says, let me come out to you, Lord. Let me come out to you. Let me walk on water too. And Jesus says, come. So Peter starts to get out of the boat, and I can imagine he put his foot over the boat. He's like, oh boy. And he starts walking and walking. Well, he should have kept his eyes on Jesus, because what he did was he looked around and he saw the wind and the waves, and he said, I'm scared. And what happened? He started to sink. So he wasn't just sinking in deep water, he was sinking, and a big storm was going on. He was terrified, and he called out, Jesus, help me. So what do you think Jesus did? Of course, Jesus put out his hand, and Peter took it, and he pulled him out of the water, and he saved him. But then Jesus said, Peter, why did you doubt? Why did you take your eyes off me? Why didn't you have more faith? See, if Peter had just kept his eyes on Jesus, then he wouldn't have sunk. He could have kept walking on top of the water. Now, friends, that's a lesson for us, that when we're in life and maybe we're going through hard times, or even if we're not, we take our eyes off Jesus and we start to sink. Maybe we make bad decisions, or we start to get scared and our worries start to take over, which can happen to all of us. All sorts of things can happen when we take our eyes off of Jesus. So what Jesus is saying, I've got you by the hand. My hand is always right there for you. Just keep your eyes on me, and I will help you keep floating all the way through life. So today I got online and I found a science experiment that I thought was kind of cool. I've never seen this before, to show us what it is like when we have Jesus wrapped up all around us, when we put our faith in him, when we're inside Jesus, and then when we don't, when we try to handle the world on our own, and when we try to handle allowing God to have control of our lives and to care for us. It's pretty cool. All right, stay tuned. So one way we can help kids understand and see that Jesus is what makes us float is by taking an orange. It's kind of interesting. So you have a peeled orange and an unpeeled orange. Well, this is like us when we don't rely on God, when all sorts of things come into our lives and we try to do everything on our own. And this is what happens. Just like Peter, we start to sink. But when we're wrapped up in God's love, when we're wrapped up in relying on Him to carry us through difficult situations, this is what happens. We float because God's love is all around us. So this is just one fun way we might demonstrate that to our kids.